Thank you so much for joining us for the 8th annual Denver Startup Week. Denver Startup Week is the largest and free entrepreneurial event of its kind, created by and for the community. Now make sure you share your experience on social media with the hashtag #DenStartupWeek. My name is Pavel Repo and I struggle with obsessive compulsive disorder. My first memory of me grappling with the monster in my head was when I was about 13 or so years old, as I was standing face to face with myself in the bathroom mirror. I began to wash my hands and quickly realized that I couldn't stop. I was lurking, craving for this just right feeling of them being clean, and it wasn't coming. I would watch them for 20, 30, sometimes even 40 or so minutes, weeks at a time for several months. My hands begin to crack and bleed and mimic the leathery exterior of a football, and yet again, I could not stop. OCD has wreaked immeasurable havoc in most parts of my life, casting doubt on most things and tarnishing some incredible relationships at that. And yet, I am convinced, and I say this with absolute certainty, that the only silver lining to me having OCD is the fact that I live in the United States of America. I've attended therapy for years on end, have had access to an OCD coach, attended and been amongst support, family, friends, and I've gorged myself on literature. And I think at this point, I've developed a few skill sets to help me navigate these rough contours and waters of OCD. And yet when you pan out and you look at the global landscape of mental health, the numbers are abysmal. There are currently 500 million people who live with a mental illness, of which 300 million individuals struggle with depression. There's currently an astonishing 90% treatment gap in low-income countries, and on average there's one psychotherapist for every 200,000 or more people. Now, as I was taking in these statistics, I felt struck by lightning. What is being done? And if what is being done is universally accepted, is it in fact effective? And that jump-started my journey, my adventure in traveling to India, attending a leadership in mental health course, rubbing shoulders with some of the foremost practitioners in global mental health, and the gestation of this organization that I'm proud and honored to run, called Finemind. We provide people what they need to recover from common mental disorders. We are focused, we believe that community mental health, the peer-to-peer aspect, is an integral component to any sort of mental health care. And as such, we recruit, we train, and we empower everyday folks, lay individuals like you, like me, to provide basic psychosocial support for the community in northern Uganda. Now that is home. And home is a district called Agago. Now if you were to speak to me a year, 2 years ago, and ask, hey Pavel, could you identify where on the map Agago district was, I would have no words. And yet my colleague, David, that is home. And David narrowly escaped the Lord's Resistance Army, hidden in a military convoy with cassava roots stuffed into his pockets as the convoy trundled along. In the early 80s, 90s, and 2000s, much of this area was in civil war, and the rebels would pillage, ransack, mutilate, and abduct kids to become child soldiers. Thousands of people became displaced, and the suffering was untold. Not to mention, the psychological toll has been staggering. Some studies assert that nearly 2/3 of the population in this area struggle from depression. This called me, us, our collective team to do something. We currently have 18 community mental health workers who continue to provide counseling supports even in our strange times we are living in now. They visit homes, they jump on telephone calls, and continue in-person counseling. Now we offer something we call a collaborative stepped care approach. Collaborative in the idea that because there are so few specialists, there aren't enough doctors, it is incumbent upon us to lean on these community mental health workers. They are the heartbeat, they are the spine, they are the true warriors of Finemind. Each of our community mental health workers undergoes a training intensive, digging deeper into the basic tenets of counseling, the principles. How do you effectively build trust? How do you build rapport with someone who's different from you? How do you navigate the contours of stigma? And how do you effectively demonstrate and apply talk treatments to provide concerted care and support? The collaborative piece just quickly addressed that, but the stepped care approach is the critical backbone to what we provide. And before someone engages in the very first step, which is called psychoeducation, it is critical that we provide a screening questionnaire to ascertain their baseline threshold. After that, we invite them to enroll in the very first step called psychoeducation, which provides basic language, basic advising, knowledge about their experience. We root deep into the mind-body link and how someone's psychology can impact someone's physiology and vice versa. Above that, the second step, if someone isn't improving, we bring in the big guns. We bring in the doctors, and per the availability of the medication, these doctors will then disperse antidepressants. The very next step is something called interpersonal counseling, which focuses on 4 problem areas. The first being grief, the second being interpersonal disputes or any sort of a conflict you may have, the third being role transitions or life changes, and then the fourth, last kind of catchment area is loneliness or social isolation. Now, our work here lies in providing additional communication skills, facilitating someone's maneuvering from perhaps an old role or mourning an older role or mourning someone's passing and stepping in to a new reality or way. And the last step to this is in fact a referral to a specialist who's critical in providing oversight, supervision, and quality assurance. Beyond that, it's also imperative that we partner with local organizations to really provide a holistic type of care. Our vision is to get into every single nook and cranny and crevice and corner in Uganda, across the world, to scale up our vision of a peer-to-peer mental health support system. We believe that mental health isn't discretionary. It's the only, or perhaps rather, a more critical piece to our self-sustenance and well-being. It's not secondary, it's not luxury, and our drive to keep at this is to, in fact, offer mental health efficacy, equity, and to push for the democratization of mental health access. Because truly, at the end of the day, there is no health without mental health. Thank you so much for your attention and time.